All right, guys, welcome back. Thanks again for tuning in. For all of my Cyclone fans out there, I appreciate you listening. I hope you enjoyed the bye week. It's always a great time when you get a bye week coming off a win or even a two-game win streak. You can kind of just sit back, relax. You can almost make yourself believe that your team's not losing a game the rest of the year and you can enjoy the rest of the country. It was an awesome week 8. We'll talk about more of the entire slate on the Play the Fight Song podcast this week. Make sure you tune in on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as we have some of our segments as well. We go into previews, we talk about segments, we talk about recaps. It's a lot of fun. We're going to break down week 9. It's going to be an awesome slate again this week, and that'll probably get released on Thursday. So make sure you tune in. If you sat back and watched week 8 as a Cyclone fan, I really hope you guys paid attention to the Big 12 slate this week because it was really important for the overall conference going forward. And I am talking about the two big heads in Texas and Oklahoma as well, because there was a lot you could take away from every single team that played this week. Let's go over quickly the 6 games that were. If you didn't get a chance to get eyes on all of them, or maybe you watched some of them, hopefully you watched the team the Cyclones will play this week. Texas escapes on the road at Houston 31-24. Quinn Ewers goes out in the third quarter. The offense was kind of humming in the first and then really got stagnant. And I was with Ewers in until he got hurt. Malik Murphy checks in, kind of takes care of business in the second half. I don't think that defense was ever going to give Houston a chance. And it was really Texas's game from the set, but it was Houston's Super Bowl and they gave him a run. But Texas goes without Quinn Ewers for the next few weeks. So that could get really interesting. Oklahoma, it comes off a huge hangover spot, defeating UCF at home 31-29, where UCF had a chance to go for 2 and tie the football game up with about a minute left. Gus Malzahn called a pretty good game all day and then called just a horrendous 2-point conversion call. Tries to go a swing pass from the running back, and he tries to throw it in the end zone. If you have a chance to go back and look at it, you can do so. It's pretty bad. I was really disappointed in that play call, but nonetheless, Oklahoma survives, but I think they showed some vulnerability in this spot, being the number 1 team right now. Oklahoma State, a team we also thought was dead a few weeks ago after that South Alabama 33-7 loss, in Iowa State beating them at home. They go on the road to beat West Virginia 48-34, and you can make a case that Ollie Gordon might be the best player in college football right now. And I say that with all seriousness. This guy runs for another 250 yards again. I really respect West Virginia's defense. I do. And he just made him look silly. And this is a team right now. I mean, well, if you get 200 yards out of your running back every game, who are you going to lose to? This is a team that looks completely different. Somebody even said in a tweet, this is the most Mike Gundy season of all time. And I couldn't agree more. This team was left for dead after the South Alabama game. And now I believe they're 3-1 after that Iowa State loss to start the Big 12 play. And they're in the heat of second place of the Big 12. Speaking of other teams for second place in the Big 12, the freshman phenom Avery Johnson delivers in his starting debut. K-State beats TCU at home 41-3. Man, that kid is legit. And I really wish he played for almost any other team because I hate Kansas State as much as the next guy. He just adds another dynamic for that running back room that needed help with his legs. He puts so much pressure on the defense, and he throws a nice ball when he has to. TCU, I thought they found something last week at home when they beat BYU. That was not the case. They got slaughtered at home, and Kansas State is another team with Iowa State, with Oklahoma State that I think is going to make a serious fight for the second place in the Big 12. Newcomers, BYU has looked the best all year. They take care of business at home. They beat Texas Tech 27-14, and it has just been tough sledding for Joey McGuire and company, as I believe they're on their 3rd quarterback this year, and that kid looks lost, as he should. He just makes terrible throws. I think he had 3 picks the week before. If it sounds like he's going to be the guy going forward the rest of the year because they have to, this team might be lucky to win another game. They're not a good football team. And Baylor, last but not least, the team you will be seeing this week, they go on the road, just like the Cyclones did 2 weeks ago. They beat Cincinnati at home on the road, and they didn't make it look as easy as Iowa State did, winning 32-29. Cincinnati had a chance to win that football game, but Emory Jones and his inconsistencies continues to really keep this Cincinnati team behind the 8 ball in Big 12 play. Let's talk about the Baylor game now for a second. Iowa State goes on the road at Baylor, 2:30 kick, ESPN Plus. Hopefully, this is the only game outside of the UNI game, obviously, that Iowa State will be playing on ESPN Plus. Go and get your subscriptions now if you haven't already. But I mean, if you're an Iowa State fan, you definitely have ESPN Plus already because Iowa State plays a million Big 12 basketball games on ESPN Plus, including they'll probably play Kansas on ESPN Plus this year. So that's another, I can go on that for hours on another day, but get ESPN Plus if you haven't. And let's talk about the Baylor Bears moving forward. This is a team, uh, not, this is a very abnormal team compared to a Dave Aranda coach football team. When I think of a Dave Aranda coach team, I think of mistake free. I think of tough, hard nose, relying on the run game, and really won't make mistakes. And everything I just said has been the exact opposite with this Baylor team this year. They started off the season, everybody probably remembers, and it was probably the last time you had an eye on Baylor. They lost to Texas State at home 42-31. This was the first Power 5 win for Texas State. Looking back on it, I don't think the loss was as bad as it looked. I think TJ Finley has been a very nice surprise at Texas State. I think he's got them in the right direction. But still, you're a Big 12 team. You're at home. You don't lose to a Sun Belt team. You don't lose to a bottom Sun Belt team like Texas State is. Week 2 came around. Blake Shapen got hurt at the end of that Texas State game. So Sawyer Robertson took it under center when Utah came to town, and he really prevented that offense from progressing. He was not good with the football. He made a ton of turnovers in the Texas State game at the end and in the Utah game. Uh, Nate Johnson, Bryson Barnes came in there again without Cam Rising like it has been all year, both of their second games of the season, and they still came out of Waco with a dub. And that was an opportunity for Baylor. At the time, I thought Baylor could have won that football game. But with the injury of Shapen, that was a whole different story. They beat Long Island 30-7. Then Texas came to town. This was, I believe, a week or two after Texas beat Bama on the road, and that was looking like a team that might not lose a football game the rest of the year. And they proved it that day. They beat Baylor at home 38-6. They went on the road to Waco and they beat Baylor at home 38-6. And it wasn't a game from the start. And honestly, it kind of felt like 60-6 if you watched that game. This was a huge game the following week for Dave Aranda, because I thought, honestly, if he had lost this football game, he wouldn't be coaching on Saturday. Baylor makes the 24 or 28 point comeback in Orlando. They beat UCF 36-35. One of the crazier things I've ever watched. I believe it was the biggest comeback in the fourth quarter in school history. It probably ranks up there in college football. Everything unraveled for UCF. And honestly, just another first down or an extra 3 points in that quarter, and it could have been over. And Dave Aranda probably wouldn't have had a job, because the following week, Texas Tech came to town without Tyler Shuck and beat the doors off Baylor 39-14. Baylor now comes back after the bye week. They go to Cincinnati just like Iowa State did. They win 32-29, but they definitely didn't make it seem as convincing as Iowa State did. Cincinnati, like I said, just talking about Baylor and their 2 Big 12 wins. Cincinnati and UCF are 2 of the teams that do not have Big 12 wins. I think they're the only team in the conference that doesn't have a Big 12 win. So what does that really say about Baylor? Their wins haven't convinced you that they're changed. I said last week, and I'll stand by it, this is easily the worst team in the Big 12 had the new 4 teams not come in. If this is the original 10, it is head and shoulders the worst team. I'm picking West Virginia over them. I think Kansas is beating them by 20. And if this game was in Jack Trice Stadium, I truly believe this is a 7-10 point spread coming out, which says a lot. If you've been paying attention to Iowa State and gambling, like, that says a lot. Iowa State came out as a 1.5 point underdog on Sunday night. Iowa State is now a 2-point favorite. So what does that tell you? The Sharps are all over the Cyclones, which is absolutely terrifying if you really know Iowa State football. Iowa State has won, I believe, once in the last 20 years. They won in 2015. Zeb Nolan was the quarterback. The offense didn't get rolling, and Hakeem Butler made this insane catch off his helmet uh, to win that game. I think it was like 20-13. And that Baylor team, I believe it was Matt Rule who was coaching at the time. That was Matt Rule's first year, and they went, I don't know, it was like 2-10 or something horrific. So that just shows you how hard it is to win in Waco. Some of Iowa State's best teams that year, we thought they were a college football playoff team or they were in the top 10. Their first on the road Big 12 conference game, they lost. So it doesn't matter. It don't matter how bad Baylor is this year. This is still a tricky spot for Iowa State, and we've proved that time and time again in our history. Let's talk about some of the guys on Baylor. I talked about Sawyer Robinson and how he took the reins and how Baylor was really bad on offense, but the starting quarterback still is Blake Shapen. And since he has been back, I guess you could say the offense has looked serviceable, and that might be pushing it for an adjective. Shapen last week was 25 of 42 for 316 yards. If Baylor wins football games, it relies on Shapen, and it relies on Shapen to throw the ball a ton. I talked about earlier. Aranda loves to run the football. When they won the Big 12 a couple of years ago, they had stud backs. They played solid defense. The defense isn't solid this year. It's really soft. It doesn't get a lot of pressure, and they need Blake Shapen to throw 40 times a game. And I'm sorry, but Blake Shapen is not a quarterback you want throwing more than 30 times a game. He was the quarterback who stepped in for Gary Bohannon and won the Big 12 title a couple of years ago, and they didn't ask him to throw it 40 times a game. Now, has he gotten better since then? Absolutely, but they need to run the football. They bring in Dominic Richardson from Oklahoma State, was a huge, huge get in the portal, and he's really disappointed this season. Here's a couple of yardages he's had in each game. He had 21 yards in that dismantle against Texas Tech. In the game against UCF, where they should have lost, he had 37 yards, and he had 4 yards against Texas. 4. Last week against Cincinnati, he still wasn't great. He only got the ball 8 times, and he had 37 yards. Going into this year, I thought Baylor was a sleeper team to win the Big 12 because they had Dominic Richardson and they had Richard Reese coming back in the running back room. Reese has been a little better. I don't know enough to see if he's been banged up or if he just hasn't been showing much. He's had 52 carries this year for 241 yards, and he had 100 yards in that UCF game. So he's only had 140 yards the rest of the year. There's just no run game. And I think it's partially to blame for the offensive line. They tried to go and add a couple of brothers from BYU to try to repair that offensive line from a year ago. And Aranda's a guy that is kind of against the portal, but he tried to change this year and he just didn't get the right guys, like plain and simple. I don't think this is a Power 5 offensive line, and I think that's been the reason why they've really struggled to run the football. So when they have to throw the football, who are they going to throw to? Look for Monterey Baldwin. He's had 24 catches this season, 452 yards, and their second option is Katron Jackson Jr. These guys are sub-level Big 12 receivers. I wouldn't put them against the best. I think Baldwin is okay, but I think this secondary for Iowa State is very used to seeing talent. Like, this is nothing that TJ Tampa, Miles Purchase, Bo Reiler hasn't seen. These two for Baylor wouldn't be the third best receiver on a healthy Oklahoma team. Just straight up, I don't think this receiver group is very good. Let's talk about offensively for Iowa State. Where can they take advantage? This team ranks 93rd in passing efficiency. That Baylor defense ranks 93rd in passing efficiency. So what does that tell you? That they got to be quick, simple, easy throws. That'll open up the downfield stuff for Jaden Higgins. That's an opportunity for Rocco Beck to really take over. And they give up like 61% passing completion percentage on the year. I think this is a great opportunity for Rocco Beck. Like, Rocco Beck has seen better defenses. I think this is an opportunity for him to stay on the field. If he wants to go 5, 6, 7 yards of completion, I think you take it. Open up the short passing game. I'm not going to go in here and say, just because this is a soft Baylor team, try to run it down their throat and be physical. No, we tried that in the Ohio game. It doesn't work. Open up the short passing game first, then let the running game come to fruition, and then we can throw it deep to Higgins, Jackson, Knoll, whoever it may be. Defensively, for Iowa State, while Baylor's throws it 40, 45 times a game, they rank in the bottom 100. It's like 95th in passing efficiency on their end. Like Shapen, while he throws it a ton and he has over 300 yards a game, he's just not very good. Like I said, this is a guy that shouldn't be throwing that much, but he kind of has to at this point. And Baylor's under 40% on third down conversions. So this is an opportunity for Iowa State to get him off the field and get him off the field quickly. Get some pressure on him. And we'll talk about some of the keys in just a second here, but it's a recipe for Iowa State to really take advantage on defense and on offense, to be quite honest with you. But for defense specifically, these corners need to get after Baldwin. They need to get after Jackson early, put a lot of pressure on Shapen. And I want to see in those first two drives, no more than one, maybe two first downs. I want a 3 and out in one of those possessions. And I want them to go into Waco and be aggressive early. Like, that's how Iowa State comes out of these weird road trips with a win. Be the aggressive team early, and I think you saw that in Cincinnati. Like, this team wasn't coming to play around. They got after Emory Jones early. They picked him off in that second possession, and then Jones got fragile. He got timid, and I think you can do the exact same thing to shape him. So last thing, let's just talk about the keys to victory. I think they're simple, but I think they're reasonable. The first one I have down is you got to take care of the ball. I mean, that's simple. You have to take care of the ball, especially on the road. You can't have dumb fumbles. You can't be throwing picks. Rocco, knock on wood, has been really, really careful with the ball this year. He's been super efficient. So if he doesn't throw a pick, like I can almost say, I'll guarantee 90% chance if he doesn't throw a pick, Iowa State's going to win the football game. So I know that's a very good opportunity for Rocco, especially against this soft defense. It's what I've seen out of Baylor this year. Special teams is my point number two. I think this is an opportunity, not just for Chase Contreras to make kicks. Like, obviously, when you go on the road, you have to make field goals. I think Contreras has proven that all year, but I'm looking more at the return team, and I'm looking at the punt team. Like, no fumbles, no bad punt returns. Kickoff return, like the game changed at Cincinnati when Jalen Knoll took that kickoff return. Was it like 50, 60 yards? I thought the momentum completely changed coming out of halftime. And I want to see a similar effort on the kickoff return and the punt return out of him, because when he can change the field like that, it really boosts the confidence in this young offensive group. And lastly, you got to convert in the red zone. Iowa State ranks 33rd nationally in converting in the red zone. I think they've done a really nice job of that this year. They showed it a couple of times when they got picks, when they had those big returns on special teams. Like, when you can convert in the red zone like Iowa State has, it's been really successful for them. And I think that they're going to have plenty of opportunities against this Baylor defense. Whether they get a pick from TJ Tampa, Malik Verdone, or Jalen Knoll returns a good punt, get points out of it. It's on the road. Anytime you cross their 25, like, get points out of it. You got to take advantage every time you can. And the last thing, bring pressure. Bring pressure. Be the more physical team. That's not just on defense. While I would love to see a day from Dominic Orange, J.R. Singleton, Tyler Onyetum, Peterson, like, I would love to see that from the defensive line, but I also want to see that offensively. And that doesn't mean like give the ball to Eli Sanders or Abu Sama and try to get 5 yards of carry. No, that doesn't happen. But what I mean by that is staying on the field, getting your tight ends involved, completing 4, 5, 6 yard outs to them. And then I think everything else is going to really open up for Rocco. Once you see him be efficient and complete those short routes, I think it boosts a ton of confidence for the offensive line and the running backs to really get going. So first possession, what I want to see out of this group, maybe the second possession, because football is weird, get a 3 and out, maybe get a turnover. And then offensively, I want to see Iowa State have a slow, steady 7-8 minute drive. And they don't have to get a touchdown out of it, but I want to see us get three points at least if the opportunity presents itself. So Waco's a weird town. It's a weird place to travel. It's a hard place to travel if you've ever went down there for a game. Weird spot for Iowa State, but man, a very, very winnable spot for Iowa State. So That's what I got on this Baylor team. I think Iowa State's got a great opportunity for itself, then has Kansas coming into Jack Trice Stadium in 2 weeks. So we'll touch base again after this one. We'll recap it and we'll break down Kansas. Hopefully we talk again soon and the Cyclones get a dub. Go Cyclones.